You know when I performed on the Super Bowl? When Justin performed on the Super Bowl and had the Janet Jackson thing?
P. Diddy is not only facing legal troubles, but he's also now on suicide watch in one of the country's most dangerous jails. Here's a detailed look at his current situation. The past week has been tumultuous for 54-year-old Sean Diddy Combs. It started with a federal indictment on Monday, and now we've learned that he's on suicide watch. He's currently being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, in Brooklyn, within the Eastern New York Judicial District, much to the concern of his legal team. Earlier this week, Diddy made 2 separate requests for bond, with his attorneys arguing that MDC is unsuitable for pretrial detention. They even sought a transfer to Essex County in New Jersey, but the final decision was left to the Bureau of Prisons. According to his legal team, MDC has a troubling history. An inmate was murdered there this summer, and at least 4 inmates have died by suicide in the past 3 years. Now Diddy is on suicide watch, a status that means he is kept separate from the general prison population. While it's unclear whether this is due to actual suicidal intent or merely a precautionary measure, a mental health professional reportedly visits his cell several times a day. The U.S. Department of Justice Institute of Corrections defines suicide watch as a set of supervisory measures for inmates at risk of suicide, requiring frequent observation. To understand the implications of Diddy's situation, we turn to criminal defense attorney Mike Corbinex. He explains that while all jails pose risks, high-profile cases like Diddy's require extra caution. The dangers at MDC, including past suicides and murders, contribute to the heightened security measures. The move to suicide watch may indeed be a protective measure due to Diddy's high profile. Corbinex points out that transitioning from a luxurious lifestyle to incarceration is a significant adjustment, and cases like these often draw comparisons to other high-profile situations, such as Jeffrey Epstein's case, which ended in a controversial death by suicide. Ultimately, jails have a duty to protect their inmates, ensuring their safety and mental well-being while they are in custody. When I heard about the suicide watch, my mind went to Rex Heuermann, the alleged go-go beach killer. Although he's presumed innocent at this point, I remember he was placed on suicide watch after his arrest. It makes me wonder if that's a common procedure for high-profile cases, regardless of the person's actual mental state. The same could be true for P. Diddy. It's tough to gauge his situation since we're not conducting interviews with him directly. When an inmate arrives, they're evaluated for both physical and mental health, and decisions about their safety are based on these evaluations, not just their celebrity status. If P. Diddy is deemed not at risk for suicide, the question then becomes whether he could be placed in general population. Given his high profile and the serious nature of the charges against him, it's a complex issue. If I were his attorney, I would want him placed somewhere safe to avoid any potential threats from other inmates seeking to gain notoriety by targeting him. The safety of a well-known figure like P. Diddy in general population is a significant concern for the facility housing him. Looking back at the events leading up to Diddy's arrest, it's striking how dramatically things have changed for him. Just a year ago, he was honored with the key to the city in New York, and now he faces serious federal charges in the Southern District. What led to this rapid downfall? To unpack the timeline and the allegations, we're speaking with criminal defense attorney Adam Conta to better understand the circumstances surrounding Diddy's indictment. Starting with the current situation, Diddy is facing 3 federal charges: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. But how did we get here? To understand, we need to rewind to the 1990s when Diddy first gained fame with his record label, Bad Boy Records, which represented artists like the notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls. During this time, Diddy was allegedly involved in sexual assaults against multiple women in New York. These allegations first came to light in November of last year, when Joy Dickerson-Neal and Liza Gardner filed separate civil lawsuits against him. Gardner claims that in 1990, during a work event where she met Diddy, he raped her and subsequently choked her until she passed out. The following year, Joy Dickerson-Neal alleges that Diddy raped her while she was a student at Syracuse University and even recorded the assault, sharing the tape with others. Although these incidents are said to have occurred in the early 90s, they did not become public knowledge at that time. As the years went by, Diddy's career continued to rise. By the late 90s, he began releasing his own music and won his first 2 Grammys in 1998. However, in 1999, Diddy was involved in a notable incident at a New York nightclub shooting. Although only 2 people were injured, none of them with life-threatening wounds, Diddy, along with rappers Shine and Jamal Barrow, were arrested. Diddy's then-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, was also arrested, but her charges were eventually dropped. Both Diddy and Shine faced trial. Diddy was acquitted, but Shine was convicted of attempted murder and criminal possession of a weapon, receiving a 10-year prison sentence. Recently, there have been claims that Shine took the fall for Diddy and that Diddy coerced J-Lo into carrying an illegal weapon. As we enter the new millennium, these ongoing allegations continue to shape the narrative surrounding Diddy. A woman known as Jane Doe has accused Diddy of raping her in 2003 when she was just 17 years old. In her lawsuit, which she filed last year, she provided photographs taken at Diddy's New York recording studio. The narrative then shifts to late 2005 or 2006, when Diddy met Cassandra Ventura, later known as the singer Cassie. According to Cassie's lawsuit, she began working with Diddy at the age of 19, with Diddy being 37. She alleges that he quickly began to exert control over her, intruding into both her professional and personal life. Cassie claims he coerced her into using illegal drugs and engaged in sexual activities with prostitutes while he either watched or masturbated. Furthermore, she states that many of these incidents were recorded by Diddy. In 2011, Cassie had a brief flirtation with rapper Kid Cudi. She claims that in 2012, Diddy threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car, intending for him to be home with friends when it happened. Shortly after, Kid Cudi's car was indeed blown up in his driveway. Fast forward to September 2022, when Rodney Jones, also known as Lil Rod, began working with Diddy. Over the next year and a half, Lil Rod alleges that he endured abuse at Diddy's hands, including instances where Diddy touched him without consent and forced him to watch inappropriate scenarios. Lil Rod claims Diddy attempted to groom him for sexual encounters. In 2023, Cassie filed a lawsuit against Diddy under the New York Survivors Act, allowing sexual assault survivors to pursue civil action regardless of the statute of limitations. Cassie filed her suit on November 16th of last year, and although it was settled just a day later, the repercussions were significant. By the end of the year, Diddy was facing additional lawsuits from Liza Gardner, Joy Dickerson, and both Neil and Jane Doe. In light of these allegations, Hulu also canceled plans for a reality show titled Diddy Plus 7, which was to feature Diddy and his family, while several major brands he had partnered with cut their ties with him. On February 26, 2024, Lil Rod filed a lawsuit against Diddy. About a month later, on March 25th, federal investigators conducted raids at 2 of Diddy's properties in Los Angeles and Miami. On the same day, Brendan Paul, Diddy's alleged drug mule, was arrested at the Miami airport. Paul faced charges of cocaine and marijuana possession, but avoided jail time through a plea deal that required him to enter a drug diversion program. By April 4th, Diddy found himself named as a co-defendant in another civil lawsuit involving the alleged sexual assault of a woman on a yacht. His son, Christian, also known as King Combs, was also listed in the suit. Over the following weeks, Diddy filed motions to dismiss several of the civil lawsuits against him. However, on May 17th, CNN released disturbing surveillance footage showing Diddy brutally attacking Cassie in a hotel hallway. 2 days later, on May 19th, Diddy posted an apology on Instagram. 2 days after his Instagram post, Crystal McKinney filed a lawsuit against Diddy, alleging he drugged and sexually assaulted her in 2003. On September 11th, singer Don Richard filed another civil suit against Diddy, accusing him of inappropriate touching, imprisonment, and threats to her life. This brings us to September 16th, when Diddy was indicted by a grand jury on federal charges. At around 8:30 p.m. that night, Homeland Security took him into custody at the Park Hyatt in New York. The indictment, unsealed on September 17th, charges Diddy with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The indictment details allegations dating back to 2009, suggesting a pattern of illegal activity over more than a decade. To understand the implications, we turn to criminal defense attorney Adam Conta. This is a significant issue for him, Conta says. The indictment outlines what the authorities believe is a pattern of illegal activity connected to the Combs enterprise. Although the indictment lacks detailed information, we have some context from the ongoing investigation and previous lawsuits, including the major lawsuit filed last November by his ex-girlfriend, Kathy. He faces substantial legal challenges ahead. Regarding the length and content of the indictment, Conta expresses surprise. It's only about 14 pages long and contains just 3 charges. Given the complexity of racketeering, it's possible the feds might add more charges later. However, even with these 3 counts, the charges are serious enough to potentially lead to a lengthy prison sentence. It's important to note that there were defaced AR-15s at the scene and an unspecified amount of narcotics, including meth and allegedly illegally obtained prescription drugs. The public will likely focus on the sex trafficking, kidnapping, and particularly the sex-related crimes topics that tend to captivate attention. Expect the term freak-offs to become a common soundbite in the coming days and weeks due to its prominence in the indictment. However, if you're looking for detailed accounts of the severe abuses the alleged victims suffered over the years, the indictment lacks comprehensive explanations. A key point to consider is the pattern of unlawful behavior attributed to Diddy, which ties back to Cassie's civil suit. Their past relationship and the serious allegations she made against him have brought significant public and legal scrutiny. Cassie's lawsuit, filed on November 16th and settled the following day, sparked widespread attention. Her allegations were pivotal in bringing the case to light and prompted authorities to investigate further. Remarkably, just a year ago, Diddy received the Key to the City in New York and the Lifetime Achievement Award at the VMA's recognition that underscores the rapid shift in his public standing. Cassie's lawsuit is crucial to understanding the trajectory of this case. Even though she may not be in the spotlight or publicly discussing the indictment, her lawsuit was instrumental in encouraging other alleged victims to come forward. This is reminiscent of the Me Too movement and similar cases like R. Kelly's, where public perception changed dramatically as more details emerged. One question that arises is why Diddy didn't settle the case privately before it became public. Historically, in such cases, there's often debate about whether early settlements could have prevented allegations from surfacing. Looking at past high-profile cases like Harvey Weinstein's, the same question is frequently asked. To be fair, what we're discussing here could amount to paying off reprehensible actions and monstrous behavior based on the allegations. However, we understand that in today's world, payoffs, settlements, and civil suits are unfortunately part of the landscape. There's no logical reason he wouldn't have attempted to settle with anyone involved in this case, as once certain matters are out in the open, they can't be retracted. If he could rewind time, he might have offered $100 million to make this issue disappear. But that's not an option now. He's facing not only a significant public life upheaval, but potentially real jail time. As we're speaking, we don't know if Diddy will get bail or be released. He has one of the top attorneys in the country, Mark Agnifilo, but there's a possibility he might remain detained, considering he's a flight risk and the serious nature of the allegations. The indictment outlines a timeline, starting in 2009, but there are civil suits against Diddy dating back to the 1990s that aren't included. This might be because the prosecution focuses on what they can prove. Charges that are too remote might not hold enough weight to be included in the current indictment. Although they might believe incidents from as far back as 1991 occurred, these might not be relevant to proving the current charges. Proving allegations from 2009, a period where technology and circumstances have changed significantly, presents challenges. Much of what's coming to light is based on the investigation triggered by Cassie's lawsuit, which led to raids on his homes in Miami and LA. During these raids, authorities seized electronic devices, hard drives that might contain recordings of the alleged acts. While the presence of guns and drugs found during the raids might be additional evidence, the focus was on these hard drives, which could potentially include unauthorized recordings and a pattern of abuse. They might exhibit abusive behavior, potentially involving unwanted drug use or sexual acts that were initially refused and later coerced. We don't have all the details yet, but much of the evidence, particularly from older cases, could come from his own recordings. Reflecting on the federal raids where these recordings were obtained, it's been 6 months since then. Diddy might have anticipated these indictments. What was his team doing to prepare during this time? I'm sure they were working to address any potential charges and attempting to avoid prosecution altogether. So, while today may not be surprising to Diddy or his lawyers, leading up to this point, there have likely been numerous meetings and discussions aimed at demonstrating that any incidents were consensual or lacked criminal intent. I suspect his legal team has been preparing for this since at least November, anticipating such a development. As for the prosecution, this extensive time frame also allowed them to build their case. Given their track record, they don't bring charges unless they are confident in their ability to prove them. Over these 6 months, they've likely done much more than just analyze recovered materials. They've been interviewing witnesses, flipping associates, and seeking out additional victims to corroborate their claims. They use these testimonies to strengthen their case and validate each other's accounts. It's likely that as they continue their investigation, they will uncover more individuals within the Combs enterprise, which includes Bad Boy Records and his media ventures, who can provide further evidence. It could involve housekeepers, gardeners, record executives. There's no way to predict exactly who might come forward as witnesses, given the extensive list of potential witnesses associated with this case. The federal government is in the process of determining this, and they have been working on it for the past 6 months. Considering the indictment was only issued yesterday, it's likely to be a considerable amount of time before the case actually proceeds to a jury trial. Nonetheless, this is the current point of speculation and anticipation for obtaining detailed information. When the time comes for the trial, what are your expectations? You've previously mentioned the numerous potential witnesses involved. The defense undoubtedly will present a robust case. What might that entail? Today, everyone involved will be asserting their positions. Defense will claim complete innocence, while the prosecution will argue total guilt with their reasons. Today is more about positioning and less about the trial specifics, even if the parties weren't fully prepared for this development. Looking ahead to the actual trial, if the arguments prove to be substantial, especially in light of recent evidence such as drugs and firearms found at his residence, the possibility of a trial could be in jeopardy. Therefore, it's unlikely that the public should expect a swift trial. Instead, a plea deal might be on the horizon. What might such a plea deal look like? At this stage, it's uncertain. However, if the case goes to trial and the defendant is convicted, the consequences could be severe, potentially leading to a life sentence depending on how the prosecution proceeds. If the defendant realizes there's no viable way out of the situation, a plea deal might still result in a significant prison term and financial penalties. The federal government has extensive resources, so the terms could be substantial. They possess the capacity to allocate virtually unlimited time and financial resources toward building and proving their case. When considering the current situation, it's notable that full acquittals are rare in the federal system. This rarity is a direct result of the meticulous and careful nature with which these cases are pursued. Given the gravity of the situation, it's intriguing to observe how this case will develop, particularly since the defendant is represented by an exceptionally skilled lawyer. The indictment at hand appears somewhat lacking in detail, yet this does not imply that we should expect an imminent trial to emerge on the horizon. The crux of the matter is that there exists a substantial amount of evidence to be reviewed. Both sides will undoubtedly engage in thorough discovery processes. There is a lot at stake here, And as previously mentioned, the prosecution seems to have a robust case. Furthermore, discussions about a potential plea deal have been broached. The question arises, is it feasible for Diddy to avoid serving jail time? At this juncture, it is premature to provide a definitive answer. While it is within the realm of possibility, it is not particularly likely given the serious nature of the charges and the allegations against him. The U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, known for its substantial resources, is handling the case, which means Diddy faces a significant challenge. However, he is equipped with top-tier resources and a highly capable legal team to assist in navigating this challenge. While it may be unlikely for him to completely evade repercussions, any mistakes or errors in the investigation could be uncovered by his proficient legal representatives. The indictment charges him not with engaging in sexual acts with the women involved, but rather with potentially recording these acts, and possibly involving male sex workers. If he was not directly involved in the sexual acts, but was responsible for recording or other related activities, there might be some room for the defense to argue that he did not participate in the acts themselves. This could potentially provide some leverage for the defense, although it remains a complex case. Diddy, who was taken into custody on Monday night, continues to assert his innocence. His legal team has issued a statement emphasizing his identity as a music icon, self-made entrepreneur, devoted family man, and philanthropist. The statement underscores his 30-year legacy of building an empire, nurturing his children, and supporting the Black community. It acknowledges that while Mr. Combs is not perfect, he is not a criminal. The statement further asserts his cooperation with the investigation, including his voluntary relocation to New York in anticipation of the charges. His legal team requests that judgment be reserved until all facts are known, portraying him as an innocent man eager to clear his name in court. This is the current state of affairs, but developments are likely to continue. To stay updated, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest information.